In this video, I'm going to show you how I set up a test cut for a thicker material, a denser material such as chipboard or craft plastic. And what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the fact that you can have two different forces set inside the software. You can have a score force and basically a cut force. And given that you can have those separately, one of the things you can do to get better cutting from thicker, denser materials is to use a score force that's a lower force first to partially cut through the material and then finish it up at the higher force. So since that can't be done on the machine itself for test cutting, at least not easily, the way to do it from the software, which is faster, is to go to the library and pick a shape. And it's always important with test cuts is that you have a shape that has both an inner path and an outer path. And that's so that when you get that cut and you lift it up out of the opening, of the material on the mat, you can see if the blade cut into the mat. Because as you know, too much blade does not yield better cutting. It only just dulls the blade and cuts into your mat, and usually can cause things like it'll cause the material to separate. It'll pull away from the mat when the blade lifts up. And then once you have that separation of the material from the stickiness, from the adhesive, then you're going to get either lousy cutting or no cutting. So what I've done here is I've gone to the library, and here in the, come over here to the library, I selected, this ring shape. This is my favorite one to use. Very simple shape. The only thing is it's really large. It's 1 inch, and that's larger than what you want to be using for a test cut. So I'm going to bring that down to half that. I'm just going to set it at 1/2 inch. Size. Then with it selected, I'm going to make a copy and have the copy pasted on top of itself. So then I just go to copy and then right click, paste in place. And now then you can see on the layers panel, I have 2 of them. Now it doesn't matter which one you pick because regardless of which one you assign to score, it's always going to be sent first. That's just the way SureCuts-A-Lot assumes that whatever you're scoring would be performed before, or what you're using a score force would be performed before a full cut. So for that, just one of them, I'm going to change it from cut to score. And so now then I have one of each. And so when I go into the cut window, and I tend to be kind of careful about this in case I forget to change it to origin point, but bring it down to where your origin's at. So it'll be cut like exactly where your blade tip is. Now, unless you're using a Caesar model, if you're using a Caesar model and you're watching this, then you would want to move it over to this corner. Okay, so alternative to that, in the cut window, you can also change this from WYSIWYG to origin point. And when you change it to origin point, it automatically moves it to the origin. And if I had selected the Caesar cutter, it'd be bringing it down to this corner. Now then, this is important. You need to mark this box for use software, speed, and force so that it'll use what's down here. Because again, over on the cutter itself, there's no way to tell the cutter that you're sending a particular layer to cut at one force versus another force unless you do it here in this window. So then let's say I am cutting something like chipboard and I know that I want the full force based on sort of recommended settings, suggested settings needs to be, I don't know, let's say 130. Then I'd put this at about half. So I'm going to set that at about, say, 65. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be exact. In fact, this might do better if it was set at 80 instead of 66, if the material can, withstand having a higher force applied. Then you can go ahead and turn your multi-cut, because usually you want a couple of passes. Again, the whole idea is not to try to force this. Don't stick this up at 160 and try to force that blade to go through there, because that's when you're going to get the mat's going to skew, or you're going to hear a stuttering sound or something of that effect. And you don't want that. You want to take it nice and easy. Think about how you're cutting a sandwich or how you're even cutting a steak. You're working your way through it. You're not trying to do it all in one fail swoop. So, and then of course, for speed settings, usually with the more difficult the material, the slower the speed, again, because you don't want to be trying to force that blade to go through the material. So a speed of 4 on the difficult material is a good place to try. The up speed doesn't really need to be low, because the up speed is how fast the blade travels when it's not down inside the material. It's the up speed. So that can still be high. And then just make sure this cut speed is low. So this would be a good place to start. And then based on the results that I get, I would make the changes. If the material is really bad, I might need to go to 3 a multi-cut of 3, all right? Or if I can see that it's wonky, you know, if my circles don't look particularly round, that means I need to bring down that score force and bring down the force and definitely increase the multi-cut. It's all about being very gentle and getting that material cut out. So anyway, I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, please let me know.